Alrighty, so with this example right here, it says, given that the y-intercept is 2 and the base is 4, then fill in the table provided. So when I see y-intercept, I automatically think it's the y value when the x value is 0. Okay? So when you see there's 0 right here, right? So that 2 needs to be put right with that 0. Okay? That's the first step. And then when you think of base, you need to think about it's the value that's being multiplied to get to the next y value. Alright? So remember how we draw this and we put in a value right here and it's being multiplied by that value? Well, that value they give you is 4. So it's telling you it's being multiplied by 4. Being multiplied by 4. Alright, so then you just do, what's 2 times 4? 8. What's 8 times 4? 32. And that's how you would fill in the table, just given the y-intercept and the base. Alright? Next problem. We have a graph that's provided to us, and we have to find the perfect points to fill out the table and then answer these questions. So a perfect point is where it intersects into those grid lines provided on the graph. Alright? So off the back, I see 3 perfect points. I see there's this one, and this one. Okay? So when we label it, we need to read the graph from left to right. That's very important. Because that graph is going down, right? So it's decaying. So when you write in the values on that table, you need to make sure they're also going down, like decreasing. They need to match what the graph is doing. Okay? So when we go older, we need to do left to right. So we're going to read it just like a book. So we're going to start at this -2, 4 point. And then we're going to work our way down. Next is -1, 2. Next one is 0, 1. Okay? Alright, so when we look at this table, we need to find that B value, that base value. So what's the number that gets you from 4 to 2? Well, it's being divided, right? Because it's being decayed, right? So it's being divided. It's divided by 2. 2 divided by 2 will get you to 1. But, like I said before, it's multiplication. It has to be multiplication. Cannot be division. So you have to change this to the reciprocal, which will be times by 1/2. Times by 1/2, okay? So now you're able to answer all these questions that's provided below it. So it says, what is the y-intercept? Where y-intercept, like I said in the video, where the example before, it's wherever that x value is 0. So you see 0 right here, it's 1. It's also, when you look at the graph, it's where it crosses on the y-axis, which is this point right here. Alright? I'll draw a line right there. Okay? So that's how you look at the graph and tell, but you can also look at the table and tell, okay? So the y-intercept value is just 1. And then it says, what is the base? Well, we found the base over here, didn't we? And like I said, it has to be the multiplication one. It can't be the division one. So it would be 1/2. Well, now you can look at growth or decay based off that graph. Since that graph is going downward, then it would be decay. But you can also look at decay based off this base. Since that base is between 0 and 1, that tells you, that confirms that is decay. Okay? So you can look at it both ways, from the table and from the graph. But you can, double check yourself. Alright, next example. We have the number of mosquitoes at the beginning of spring was 500. The population of mosquitoes are expected to grow at a rate of 25% a month. How many mosquitoes will there be after 5 months? Alright, and now we're going to read the next part. A student was presented with this problem above and presented these steps to the solution. Find the errors within their work and correct them. So this right here is the student's work. These are the steps they showed to get to their final answer. Okay? Well, how I would approach this problem is I'll go ahead and solve it first and then compare my steps to the student's steps and see where they went wrong. Okay? So when I solve these problems, I usually highlight or circle important information. Like there's 500 there, there's a 25% there. It talks about growth, so that has to be growth. We have month here and months there. We also have a 5 there. Okay? So based off that information, we can fill out the P, the T, let's do the and then the T. Okay? So we have the P as 500 because that's what they started with. That's how many mosquitoes the spring started with. Alright, then the weight is at 25%, but remember, you always got to convert that to a decimal form. So you got to do 25 divided by 100. So that will equals that 0.25. Time is telling you how many mosquitoes would there be after 5 months. And since month and month match up, you don't have to convert no units. So you can go ahead and just put 5. And since we're talking about growing at a rate, that means it has to be the growth exponential function or formula. Raised to the T. Alright, so since we have all the information we need to plug in, I'll just go ahead and plug it in. Raised to the 5th. Alright. Now you can plug this entire thing into Desmos and get the final answer, which is 1,525.878. Okay? Real quick is that we need to look at what is this answer telling you. Like, what are the units? What is it? So it's telling us how many mosquitoes. Alright? Can you have part of a mosquito? No, you can't have part of a human. Same thing, you can't have part of a mosquito. So when you round this, we need to round to the whole number. Alright, so when you round, you look at the place beside it to the right of it to figure out if that number stays the same or goes up. And if it's 5 and above, then that number will round up. But then if it's 4 and below, it remains the same. So since this is an 8, then that will make that that 5 round up to a 6. So we have 1,526, and what we're talking about is mosquitoes. So that would be the unit. Alright. So since we have solved it on this side, we're going to look at what the student did on this left side over here and compare it to what we did. Alright, so off the bat, I see that we have the P as 500, but they have the P as 5,000, so that's an issue. I also see that we have 0.25, and they have just 25, so they did not convert it. I also see that we have an addition because we talked about growth, but they have subtraction, so they're doing the decay function. And then so when you explain the errors they did, also, I will mention that at the very end, with this final answer, they did not provide no units. So I know that the final answer is incorrect because at the very beginning they plugged in the wrong information. But they still should have provided some type of units to tell us what we're looking at. But when you explain what they did wrong, you can say that 25, they did not convert percentage to weight. So, did not convert percentage to weight. And then they did subtraction instead of addition. Okay. And then the last thing to explain is they added an extra zero. Added in an extra zero. Added in an extra zero. Alright? So that's how you would explain it in words, but you can also compare it to what you did to show what they did wrong, okay? Alright, so next problem. So this problem says you have invested $1,500 into two different companies. Company A will have an interest rate of $500 annually. Company B will have an interest rate of 25% each year. Which company would you invest in? Explain your reasoning. Alright, so when I read these types of problems, I go ahead and highlight important information that I see off the back. So we got 1,500 there. We have 500 here. We have 25% there. And of course, you know, other keywords like rate, year, annually, you know, things like that, of course, tell you certain things. Alright, so since this is talking about two different companies, we have Company B and Company A. When I write down the work, I go ahead and split it up, so then I can see what's going on for each company. So I'll go ahead and write Company A over here, and then Company B over here. Oh, don't want to make a B for me. Something like that. It's close enough. Alright, so starting off, I talk about the principal or Y-intercept, initial value. Since I invested $1,500 into both companies, that will be the starting value. So I'll just put starting value to be generic. It does not want to write for me on this side. There we go. Okay. So then, when you read about Company A, it says you have an interest of $500 annually. Now, annually also means yearly, so don't get tricked up on that. Just means yearly, just like the other one talks about. It says each year right here, same concept right there. So, when you look at it with Company A, you don't see a percentage rate, right? And the only other types of like functions you've used is linear. So when you don't see that percentage rate, like exponentials always have, then it's automatically going to be linear, as of right now anyways. So, since it's linear, since we have established this is going to be linear, then you need to remember the linear formula, which is that y equals mx plus b. Alright, since we know it's linear now and using that formula, then we can plug in the information and make more sense. So, when it says $500 annually, that's going to be your slope or your rate of change because that's what they're giving you each year. That's what's being multiplied by the years. So that's going to be the slope. So M equals that 500. And then that B, we've always talked about, is the Y-intercept, which is another word for initial value, starting value. So that B is going to be that 1,500. So you can go ahead and plug all these values into the formula. So that would be the model of Company A. Alright, so then we go to Company B. And since we did establish that we see a rate, that 25%, we can go ahead and assume that it's going to be exponential. Alright? Since we know it's going to be exponential. And when you invest money, of course you're going to invest into something that's going to bring your money up. So we're going to assume it's definitely growth. We don't want a decay one, right? Alright, so we got the y equals p times the 1 plus r raised to the t, right? Alright, so we established that starting value is the same. So p also stands for the starting value, initial value. So we can go ahead and say that is the 1500. The r we got is that 25%. Remember, you have to convert that to a decimal. So 25 divided by 100, which equals that 0.25. Alright. So then we can go ahead and plug those values into the formula. So we got y equals 1500, 1 plus the 0.25 raised to the t. Alright. So now these are our two formulas. Now based off that, you still don't know which company you want to invest in, right? It's not clicking. Doesn't make sense. So what I would suggest to do is plug in time, since both of them are missing time, because that x stands for time and that t in the exponential one stands for time. So if you plug in, let's say 2 years for both of them,